Command Chief Master Sergeant Cameron Pieters, Senior Enlisted Leader for the state of Nevada, been doing the job for roughly 7 to 9 months. I would imagine that when you came into this position, our human nature, we have expectations. We can say, no, I didn't, I was just coming in fresh. But the reality is we have expectations. From looking at it now, looking through the lens that you are now, pre-Senior Enlisted Leader to where you are now, what are some of the key things that you're like, wow, didn't expect that? What were some of those things?
Coming into this position and taking over as the Command Senior Enlisted Leader for the Nevada National Guard has really been an eye-opening experience.
Okay.
As much as I believe that I'm a very high-speed individual, that I have innovation, that I really know the organization well, when you roll into a position that encompasses both Army and Air, required me to kind of shift my focus to understand more Army.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you have this perception when you're in the air about the Army. You have a perception when you're in the Army about the air.
Of course.
And when you get into a joint position, you find that some of those perceptions are not true.
Yeah.
You know, people will be like, oh, how is it working with the Army? And I'd say, well, they're great. They're human beings just like us.
Yeah.
You know, they have similar challenges that we have on the air side.
Yeah.
And when you look at it from a joint perspective, when you look at how do we elevate the organization, how do we elevate the pride in the organization, and how do we move the organization forward, what becomes very apparent is how big of a task that is.
Yeah.
And I look at that like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to really work on our culture, if we're going to call it reframe our culture or reinvigorate our culture, or just, stamp the pieces of our culture that are already in place.
Yeah.
Holding people accountable to loyalty, duty, honor, integrity, selfless service, our core values. That's our culture.
Yeah.
And when we don't focus on those things, I think that's when we get a little bit askew.
Good.
Because I think that it's so important. I talk about how we have some fantastic trained soldiers and airmen.
Yes.
They're very, very good in their MOSs and their AFSCs, their jobs. And we do such a great job. When we deploy on our federal mission, we have people that execute just fantastically.
Yes.
When we are called up by the governor to do domestic operations, we execute with pride and professionalism.
Yeah.
We unfortunately have lost more people to suicide than we have to combat in the last 20 years.
Wow.
Which shows that we're very, very good at training soldiers and airmen. But we have some work to do when it comes to helping warriors combat the crises that are going on in their lives.
Man, I love it. You led right into the next question that I had for you, and that was, looking at it from your perspective, you've been in the job, like I said, only 7 to 9 months, but you've been around the Nevada National Guard for years. We won't say the total number of years because we have soldiers that aren't even that, that our soldiers are airmen that aren't that old. But looking at it from your perspective, from where you're at, what are some of the key things that we as a National Guard, Nevada National Guard, need to do or should do from your perspective to enrich our culture from this point forward?
Some of the things that I look at that feel like we could enrich our culture, we talk a lot about soldier care. We talk about how we recruit people to our fantastic organization. I mean, the Nevada National Guard is a top-notch organization. And in order to get people to come into this environment, we need top-notch recruiters. And our recruiters do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Even in these down times, our recruiters are bringing in, people left and right, and they're bringing in the right people.
Yeah.
So as we get them into our formations, are we putting our best foot forward with them? Are we solidifying really the next 4 to 5 or 6 years of their enlistment?
Yeah.
If we don't treat them right the minute that they come in the door, they've already made the decision, I'm done in 4 years. I'm just waiting this out. Once I get through this.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important from a retention standpoint that we do provide that enriched environment.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes hard for people to understand what an enriched environment looks like, because we know what it doesn't look like.
Yeah.
You know, if we can provide an environment that reduces sexual assault and sexual harassment, I mean, that's what's our culture that we're shooting for. That's the environment.
Yeah.
You know, many people in our organization have kids. I have 2 children that are also in this organization. I have a 3rd child that's getting ready to go into high school that wants to be part of this organization. I want to make sure that we provide this enriched environment that my children can come in and be safe in.
Yeah.
And can thrive in, and can get the most out of the National Guard that they can.
Yeah.
Because really, get everything you can spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, get everything you can out of the National Guard. Because if you do end up only staying for 1 term or maybe 2 terms, like, have you gotten everything out of it? And being part of an environment that allows that to flourish is so important. So how do we as leaders contribute to that? And that's where I would go to our leadership engagement.
Yeah.
It's the reason that we have to go out there and see the soldiers and airmen where they are.
Come on.
We cannot provide an environment today that was the same environment that we had, 20, 32 years ago when Airman Pieters, joined the organization, because we've evolved.
Yep.
We have evolved, and we have to continue to show that evolution. So meeting soldiers where they are, meeting airmen where they are is so important, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Come on. You mentioned some really key things in there that I want to capitalize on just for a minute, since I have you as a captive audience. You said, our culture to be enriched. You said how our culture flourishes. Huge things. A while back, I did a little study, and I did a lot of reading about, cultures and things like that. And there was 2 words that kept popping up. And those 2 words were a sense of belonging and a sense of value. And I don't think that you would disagree here that, if we want to create that enriched culture, we need to make sure that we give our soldiers and airmen value and a sense of belonging. Been around 32 years. I heard you cough it out. How do we do that? How do we create a sense of belonging and value so that those soldiers want to do more than 1 term? How do we do that?
I believe in order to provide value, belonging, they have to feel like their voice is heard. And that's where I want to go back just briefly to the evolution.
Yeah.
There was a time when we used to just tell airmen and soldiers, hey, do what I tell you. And they would salute smartly, and they would say, yes, chief, and they would do that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's a little bit different. We have a different generation that's in the military. And there's times when we have to say, hey, I need you to do this, and I need you to not ask questions, just execute with this. But getting to the why of that, we're going to get to the why of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to do that on the front end. Hey, listen, why? Why are we doing this? Because every piece matters.
Yeah.
In order to be in a combat arms unit, everybody from the cook in the back to the person on the front line, to the people providing signal, to the people driving tanks, they're all contributing to that fight.
Yeah.
So knowing that they are part of something bigger is really the message that we have to send in this leadership engagement.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned is the way that the air side takes care of readiness and gets after readiness, and the way the Army takes care of readiness are a little bit different.
Okay.
And I think you have to understand that, especially if you're a soldier.
Yeah.
On the air side, it's, we talk about the National Guard's motto of always ready, always there. I would say that on the air guard side, it's smaller. It's about a third of the size of the Army National Guard, both in the state of Nevada and nationwide.
Yeah.
And in order to keep that 1/3 size, always ready, always there, is physically an attainable goal.
Yeah.
When you look at the Army side, it's much bigger. So to keep everybody trained all the time, we just don't have the funds in order to do that. So sometimes we have to prioritize, who we're keeping trained, who we're sending to the range, who we're getting ready for that deployment. And there's some aspects that are kind of put on the bench over here, and they're kind of like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
That's the piece where we have to really make sure that we're connecting with them, because they may not be on the on-deck circle for the next call up, the next deployment. So how do we keep them engaged? And I think that is through meeting them where they are, treating people with respect and
dignity.
Yeah.
And I love the word that you said, and that was, let their voice be heard. And I think that is so important, because old school military was do as I say, move out, go get her done.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in World War II. We're not going to the front line. We're not sending soldiers and airmen out thousands at a time to go to the front line. And we're in a different time. So allowing voices to be heard, to be stronger, is so important. Last question. Purple Resolve. We love it. You've been to it. I've been to it. It's a great thing. What does Purple Resolve bring to the table to help an organization, let me get more specific, to help the Nevada National Guard get better?
Purple Resolve brings an inner view of yourself.
Oof.
When I went through Purple Resolve, I was amazed I learned so many things about myself.
Yeah.
Like, did Purple Resolve help me with the tools? And yeah, absolutely. But it was the tools to really look at myself. I learned about self-awareness. I learned about maybe some struggles that I wasn't having at the time, but I was like, ooh, I can use that in the future if I get to a dark place.
Yeah.
And since I was not in a dark place, I would say that I used that to help catapult me to be a better leader, to be a better father, to be a better husband. I think for people that maybe enter Purple Resolve that are in a little bit of a lower place, their perspective of it is a little bit different, because they find that helps them expound on maybe some of the challenges that they're having.
Yeah.
My worry is that people think that Purple Resolve is a box you check. Yeah. It's what the command team wants you to go through because we've come up with this initiative. But really what ends up happening is you go through Purple Resolve and you get pieces in there. You get to pick out pieces that help you be a better person.
Yeah.
And I talk a little bit about how we can be spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally better. Purple Resolve encompasses all of that.
It does. And I think that it's exciting, and it's a 2-day course, and you really capitalized it very, very, very well. But for me, when I think of Purple Resolve, one of the big things that stand out for me is this is something, when you take Purple Resolve, it doesn't just help you be a better soldier or airman, it helps you be better in your life all the way around. And so if we can capitalize on helping, letting their voice be heard, words that you said, if we can capitalize on the 28 days that soldier or that airman is not with us and help them be a better mom, dad, husband, wife, whatever it is, guess what? By default, they're a better soldier and airman. And we allow their voice to be heard. They're a stronger leader. I love to say, what is Purple Resolve? Purple Resolve enriches culture and it cultivates leaders. Leaders are in every way, shape, or form, not just the commander, not just the first sergeant. If you have influence on anybody, you are a leader. Whether it's one person or it's 100 people, you're a leader. And so, hey, thank you for being here today. Any closing things that you want to throw out to people that I missed or that's on your heart that you want to share?
I do want to share that one of the things that I like about Purple Resolve is it helps people with the heart set mindset. Mm-hmm. And we ask soldiers and airmen to, put on their body armor, put on their Kevlar helmets, jump in an airplane, jump in a helicopter. We ask them to go out there and execute in their specialty.
Yeah.
But there's also times when we have to tell them, we need you to get out of that helicopter. We need you to take that body armor off. I need you to take that helmet off. And I need you to work on your internal peace. Because we know at the end of the day that that's gonna make them better soldiers and airmen.
Yep.
One of the things that I've learned is that caring about people ultimately will rise the organization. And we don't care about people just for the fact of making the organization rise. We care about people because it's the right thing to do, because we have hearts and we love them. And we know that the byproduct will be that the organization will get better. So work on the heart set and mindset, also focus on your specialty, and we will be a high-performing team.
Command Chief Master Sergeant Cameron Pieters, you rock. Thanks for being here, brother.
Thank you, sir.